And now it was snowing, white flakes dissolving into the black ground. Everything swayed as Benny walked along the quay. Perhaps it took a while to get used to being on land again. The English dockers were shouting in that up and down language he couldn't understand. Harwich, he read on a sign. Then they were on a bus, the air thick with the reek of long journeys and farewells, and not being sure where the toilets had been, and hoping the big boys wouldn't give you trouble. Act your age, he told himself. You're 11, not 6. A plump woman in a hat that looked like a squashed cake wiped noses and handed round wrapped sweets. Someone was sick, very quietly, into a paper bag. A child of about 4 wept, face buried in his lap, tears running down his knees. The 7-year-old girl twins stared at their hands, their golden curls now less smoothly brushed, stains on the fronts of their coats. Then the camp, a huge metal-clad structure, not like the camps he'd heard about at home. The woman in the squashed cake hat ushered them inside to trestle tables, where they were served a hot stew he was too tired to identify. Young men and women led them to little houses like miniature alpine chalets, where they were to sleep, even though it wasn't yet night. Groups of 3 or 4. The other boys in his hut complete strangers. Good. He laid his football at the end of the bunk, certain he wouldn't sleep. Closed his eyes to block out everything. Thought of his bedroom back at home. Quiet, shuttered. Football posters on the wall. Boxes of construction kits, a bookcase of books. Emile and the Detectives was his favourite. Be good to have it here now and flick through its pages. A dull ache of homesickness inside him now. Try to ignore it. Feel the safe roundness of the football at your feet and... When he woke, it was morning. He was still wearing his outer clothes. If he'd been at home, there'd have been trouble. They spoke German here. He heard them calling out as they walked along outside the chalets, knocking on doors, encouraging kids to wash before breakfast was served. He'd tell them he'd changed his mind and wanted to go home. But he'd seen them on the boat, hushing kids who cried for lost homes and families, telling them how fortunate they were, how their parents and friends were so relieved they were safe and would be sad if the children returned to the danger. Well, he was no little kid. He wasn't going to blub. He'd forced down the memories of the people at home so they wouldn't trouble him any more. Perhaps he'd only be in England for a few months anyway, if the war didn't happen. They might be pleased to see him back in Germany after an absence. A couple of days passed. They were kind enough here. He was even growing used to English cooking, strong-smelling kippers for breakfast with a thick oat soup called porridge, which coated your insides like a warm glue. At home, breakfast meant warm bread rolls from the baker's, eggs boiled so that their yellows were still soft, slices of nutty cheese. Thinking about these past meals sharpened the persistent ache inside him into a more painful stab of homesickness. He looked around for distraction. The children were wearing coats and scarves to breakfast in this huge glass and iron edifice where once, they'd been told, holiday-makers had enjoyed cabarets and fish with the fried potatoes the British called chips. Were all English homes cold like this? A vase of chrysanthemums sat on the table. At home, these were flowers you took to the cemetery for your mother's grave. The floor was wet from snowy footsteps. Today was Sunday, market day for English families seeking foreign children. He'd already heard rumours that nobody really wanted kids like him, male, over 8. "Try smiling," he overheard a youth worker telling a boy of about his age. "It helps." Benny practiced smiling. His facial muscles ached. He'd laughed once since he'd been here at Dovercourt, at a clown performing in one of the evening shows, but you could laugh and not really be happy. "Why don't you join in prayers?" one of his roommates in the wooden chalet had asked him this morning, frowning. Benny tried to make a relaxed but dismissive gesture with his hand. "Weren't you observant at home?" The boy folded a towel into neat squares while he addressed Benny.